Geek Therapy Radio.
Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. I am your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. Sorry I haven't been putting out more podcasts, and maybe I shouldn't be apologizing for that so much. Just a lot of things going on right now, and I really enjoy getting behind the microphone when I am able to get behind the microphone. I hope you are all doing well in this coronavirus world. It wouldn't be too much to ask if anyone's discovered a new hobby or rekindled an old one. If you have, email me, geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. My guest today, yes, I have a guest today. It's my friend Nathan, who I've had on the show before, and I think the past a couple times I've had him on the show, we've both had a little bit of wine in our systems, but tonight...
Nothing's changed.
Well, okay, so what's changed is... I don't have any wine in my system right now. I had about 3 snaps of whiskey a couple hours ago. I had a whiskey and Coke right when I got home from work, but that was a few hours ago. So one of us is sober. One of us is still unwinding with some wine. Nate.
Got to unwind.
Nate, you got on wine. How you doing, Nate?
I'm doing good.
Good. So we've been spending a lot of time on Skype recently. All right. I didn't know we were going to go down this rabbit trail right off the bat. We haven't been using Skype possibly for the way that Microsoft intended people to use Skype.
It was not intended for this use. No,
but we've been playing quarters. We've been using 21st century technology to play quarters with our friends all around the world, including Dan in Malaysia, literally 10,000 miles away from us. And it's just, remember Back to the Future and all the things, oh, well, we did get this, but we didn't get that. We did get this, we didn't get that. We got Donald Trump in power. We did not get hoverboard. Well, we kind of have hoverboards. We got tablets. We got drones. Remember the drone outside the clock tower? It didn't foresee Skype, and it definitely didn't foresee playing quarters with Skype.
But it works.
And that's the beauty of technology.
I don't even have to leave my house to have my friends punish me and make me get drunk. Sit right here.
So it's mostly Dan. I mean, I've been pretty good, but we've all been pretty decent. I think overall,
I'd give myself a B+.
I think overall Nick has been the one who's been getting the brunt of the punishment.
Well, I mean, he chooses 9% alcohol beers to play quarters with, so
that's true.
He wants to be punished.
That's true. That is 100% true. He'll start with, I mean, he's got all sorts of craft brews. I don't think there has ever been a Bud Light in his house, just a normal beer. So normally you play quarters with not your best stock. But if you told Nick that, hey, maybe don't play with your best beers, he'd be like, this is the worst beer I have. This special microbrew from 7%. Colorado. Yeah, that's at least 7% alcohol.
Beer.
Right. That he's like, exactly. This is my sitting around beer.
This is my swill that I keep in the basement.
Yep. So I
Just for brevity, my swill is Busch Light.
Yeah, just to bring Nathan down to the level of the common man, to relate to the listener, his swill is Busch Light.
I'd have to drink like 15 of those to go to bed floating on a cloud. But not tonight, because I've had like 4 bottles of red wine.
Bottles?
Well, I didn't drink them all myself. Split them with my wife. But
Four bottles.
well, we're celebrating, had some nice things happen to me today with work. So, I mean, it's time to, live a little, quarantine's getting lifted, at the, what is it? Thursday? I think Thursday we're all going to be allowed to go back out and start shopping.
I think is it not limited? I don't think it's,
it's not just a free for all, but
right.
The stay at home order expires on Thursday. So you don't, you can go about your business.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Right. With some limitations, but right. We're easing back to normal. Is the good thing with work something you can share or just keep it to yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I was basically given my own territory with work. So, I mean, it's kind of like a little bit of a promotion.
Great.
So, good news amidst all this negative stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm happy about that, but yeah.
That's great. I don't even have, if I still had my whiskey drink, even though I finished a couple out, maybe I should go. Do I even have a beer?
I mean, I have whiskey behind me. It doesn't take but a moments to turn.
Okay.
And pour it up.
Well, if you can throw it really hard, 40 miles from Kingwood to Missouri City, just get out in your yard, 4 bottles of wine in your guts, and you're just throwing whiskey around. Okay. That wouldn't be great. So
no, it wouldn't.
No. Don't screw up your promotion by getting thrown in jail for throwing bottles of whiskey. I'm trying to throw it to my friend in Missouri City.
It's a celebration.
Okay. So over the past couple days, recently, you and I have been discussing, I guess it's a topic that came up in quarters. So on the show frequently, especially going into quarantine, I implored my listeners, hey, if there's something that you haven't been able to get into for the past few years because life's been too hectic, maybe, blow the dust off of that Dungeons and Dragons set or what your Lego set, whatever old hobby you used to have. Maybe you built model airplanes, whatever it was. Maybe you have old Nintendos, old 16-bit, 8-bit systems, whatever. Maybe you can kind of get reacquainted with that. Now, the caveat that I offered with that is not necessarily that I'm encouraging somebody to go out and spend their life saving. We've all gone online shopping during this quarantine. Obviously, I've got a bunch of Palm Pilots and things like that that I swear is being used for video, which it is. I'm typing the script for it right now. But Nathan, what have you been getting up to the past few days?
Well, online shopping is, as I say, even easier when, number one, you never leave the house, which I haven't done in like 97 days. And number two, when you grease those wheels with plenty of alcohol, and then you throw in a dash of eBay, and then you spritz it with the desire to play retro video games, you get what I have, which is over the last week, I've been on eBay scouring, looking for Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64 consoles and video games, and so I settled on getting the Super Nintendo, which brings back the nostalgia of me when I was 8 or 9 years old when I got my Super Nintendo. So I bought a Super Nintendo, and then I've probably purchased about 5 or 6 games on eBay. Mm-hmm. The best, most valuable game that I bought was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4: Turtles in Time.
Yes,
original,
awesome.
And that one set me back a few bucks, but everything's supposed to be coming in the mail within the next week and a half or so. So I imagine that over the next week, every day there's going to be a package showing up with some kind of Nintendo game in it.
Just like Christmas.
Well, it's going to be Christmas for me, but at the same time, it's going to be a great opportunity for my wife to flog me for all of the, crap that I've purchased.
Yeah.
But that's what I've kind of gotten into, other than just messing around on the computer and like you said, playing quarters on the weekends. But but yeah, so I've really gotten into that. I've gotten into the value pricing of these games. You know, I don't want to overpay for something that isn't really worth that much. So I'm not really into it for the collecting, I want to play these games, but at the same time, I don't want to get like reproduction games where like you can't, there's no value in it. It's just kind of like there. If that were the case, I just download the emulator and play it. Right.
Which you still can do. Well, actually, I will not publicly advocate for that, but I will not confirm nor deny the application of such processes.
I won't confirm or deny that 5 minutes ago I was playing Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress.
Won't confirm or deny that you sent me a messenger of a screenshot of some random video game. Can I ask if you want to share what you did pay for Turtles in Time? Because to me, let me tell you why. And that's what's interesting about all this is, you know, the other night I was telling you guys, we were talking about what's the most expensive video game, and I told you guys about the Nintendo PlayStation prototype that sold for over $300,000 at auction. And then we were talking, well, what about the most expensive video games? And I said, there's NES games floating out, at least one of them floating around out there, that it's worth $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for these super rare cartridges. So I know the interesting conversation is Turtles in Time, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4 for Super Nintendo. A lot of us listening remember playing Turtles in Time for Super Nintendo. It was one of my favorite games for the Super Nintendo. You'd think, oh, that cart's probably everywhere. What could that possibly be worth? 50 cents? Last time I saw it in GameStop in the year 1999 or 2004 or whatever, it was in the bargain bin at GameStop for 25 cents. So how much is Turtles in Time worth now? And that's my question to you, Nathan, is how much did you wind up spending on Turtles in Time?
So just to give some backstory here, Turtles in Time is valued by pricecharting.com, which is just your, you know, kind of like your go-to source for getting kind of like a quick reference. Hey, what's this thing selling for recently? You
said it's kind of like Beckett for baseball cards and basketball
like Beckett
cards.
for baseball cards. I mean, you should always check your recently sold eBay ads to make sure that that's kind of still lining up with what you're seeing on this website. But anyway, the website has this card valued at like $46.60 loose, and I paid $47.
$47? Yeah,
$47 plus $3 shipping. So I mean, I paid basically what it was worth. I mean, I saw on eBay the same game going for $53 and $60. I'd happened to find a buy it now for $47, so I decided, hey, you know, it's close enough to what they're saying it's worth, so I'll just go ahead and grab it because I really wanted to get it.
Yeah.
But for now, that's probably the most valuable game that I'm going to have for a while, because most of the games that I like to play are going for like $8 to $12 a piece.
Which still, $8 to $12 for a Super Nintendo cartridge, that's probably, that could be 6-7 times what it was at its lowest. And even $47 for Turtles in Time, that game sold brand new mid 90s for, you know, $60, and adjusted for inflation, that's probably closer to $70 or $80 in 2020 money. So $47 might be pretty much exactly what it was brand new back when it first came out. And to boot, it's not like one of these games that's super rare, but it sucks, that you don't want to play it. It's even on the emulator, you don't want to play a game that sucks. But Turtles in Time is a good game, and it's still fun even in the year 2020.
Well, what really drove me to want to get it was just reminiscing about, because that game came out for arcade first before it came to the Super Nintendo.
Right.
And I remember playing that game in the arcade and always having to pump quarters into it to keep playing. And when it came out for the Super Nintendo, it was like, wow, now I don't have to like have a whole pocket full of quarters to play this game all the way through. And
it looked just as good. It was a good port. It was an awesome port.
But I mean, like, some of these games are ridiculous. Like one game that I've never played, but I know that it's like a highly sought after video game for Super Nintendo.
Is it Earthbound?
Earthbound is one, but Pocky and Rocky 2. It goes for $310 loose.
Out, just not even in package, just loose.
Nope, just hanging out. $300.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've never played it, either of them, the first one or the second one. The first one goes for like 110. But I mean, some of these games are just, I guess they kind of fell through the cracks and aren't really available. So there's a big demand for them. Some other schools of thought is that some of the manufacturers for some of these games that go for high amounts of money is they weren't really of the greatest quality, so a lot of them didn't work. So when you have a working copy of a game, it's really expensive.
Fascinating. It probably also boils down to they just didn't print very many of them.
Yeah, and another one that I really want to get is, this is like kind of like a guilty pleasure type game, but Nickelodeon Guts. Played that game. I remember renting that game from Blockbuster. I remember climbing the aggro crag.
Yep.
I remember doing the trampoline dunk, whatever competition that's in that game, and I really want that game.
Yeah.
And it's like $12 is the going rate for it, but you never know how much it's going to go for on eBay.
No, I 100% fully agree and understand that sentiment, where it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best game in the world. You could want that game more than you want Turtles in Time or more than you want a super rare game because it means a lot to you. And a game that meant a lot to me back in the late 80s, I remember one of my first memories with the Nintendo and Blockbuster is going to Blockbuster 2 or 3 times every weekend with my allowance. The game I would rent every weekend was Coyote, or what is it? Coyote and Roadrunner, or Roadrunner and Coyote for the NES. I went back and played that a couple years ago as an adult, and I was just thinking, this game sucks. This game is almost impossible. But when I was a kid, it was all magical to me. I like I said, I went back many weekends in a row to spend $3 or $4 to rent the Looney Tunes Roadrunner and Coyote cartridge for the Nintendo, and that's a game that has not held up to the scrutiny of time. You can play games like Super Mario Brothers, and of course Super Mario Brothers 3 and Kirby and all of those games for the NES, and they still hold up today. They're still great. Coyote and Roadrunner, or Roadrunner and Coyote, it does not hold up. There's plenty of games for the NES that don't hold up. So, not changing gears completely here, and I hate that saying.
I just want to interject here real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
I just bought Nickelodeon Guts on eBay.
Just right now as we're talking?
Yeah.
I'm a bad influence.
It was $10.
So I had this idea. I'll put a pin in what I was about to say. Not to get too sidetracked here, but a while back, I forget when, I saw it was a piece of the aggro crag, or not the piece. You know how they would award the winner.
When they win, they got a piece of the aggro crag. Yeah. Right,
and it had a little light in the base, and it lit up. And one of them appeared on eBay. I forget for how much it was, several $100s, if not a few thousand. And I was just thinking, man, let's rewind time a little bit to our wilder youth, and let's say we are 22 years old, between 20 and 22. Let's say at least 21, and you go out to Midtown or the Strip, wherever in Houston, where all the college girls are hanging out, and you're in college, and that period of life, if you catch my drift.
Right.
And where everyone, and like the guys are trying to drive around in their daddy's Ferraris and Lambos and Corvettes and stuff, and trying to impress girls, like dressed all slick. They've got their hair spiked all Justin Timberlake, and they're looking fresh, and they got their chains and their Jinkos and whatever on from that time period of our life. I just thought, man, screw that. If you could somehow procure the piece of the aggro crag and just wear it around your neck and just go out to the club, you would clean house. You wouldn't have to do anything. Just wear it, and you could take home whoever you want. Not that I advocate that.
As long as they were over the age of 28.
Right, I'm saying, but that's what I'm saying. If they were your exact same age, and they remembered Guts and Global Guts from not that many years ago. If you're a 22-year-old male and there's a 22-year-old female, and she sees you from across the dance floor,
there's no way she's not going to see you with a piece of the aggro crag hanging off your neck.
Right? Because it's like 2 feet in diameter. But I'm saying that's the ultimate baller status. That's all you need. You could roll up in a piece of crap 1982 Corolla.
Basement, but I got this aggro crag.
Yeah.
What up?
What's going on, girl? Let's get married. Oh, have my babies. Because you're wearing a piece of the aggro.
You went to Harvard? I won this piece of aggro crag in 1994.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't even win it. I bought it off eBay 2 years ago from a kid who won it in 1994.
Right. The kid won it right after his bar mitzvah, and it served his purpose. The dude who put this up on eBay has 7 kids now, and he figured it's enough. I'm gonna pass the torch. This is power that's too much for me to yield. I'm gonna pass it on to the next guy, assuming it was a guy who bought it. And I would 100%, if I was in Vegas, I would bet every penny I had that it was absolutely a guy who bought a piece of the aggro crag. No, I cannot perceive of a sane woman in her 30s who would see a piece of the aggro crag on eBay for like $2,500 and say, this is a feasible purchase. That's a total man purchase. That's a total man purchase. The only way he's gonna justify it is to himself, because he cannot justify it to anybody else. But I digress from the aggro crag. Did you ever want to go on Global Guts?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a stupid question.
It was like American Gladiators for kids.
Yeah,
and less muscles.
And the Gladiators didn't get
less steroids.
The Gladiators didn't get a piece of the aggro crag. Plus,
no, they didn't.
The Gladiators weren't doing, I mean, their obstacle courses and everything looked fun, but it didn't look as fun as, remember that basketball game where they would tie you to the bungee cord?
Right, and you jump off way high, and you land on the trampoline, and then you dunk on like a 13-foot goal or something.
And back and forth, back and forth.
all around the rim, because they were probably worried about some kid splitting his brain on the...
Yeah. Because they probably went through 5 or 6 kids who did that in testing in beta, and said, "Look,
their bones are probably what molded the aggro crag."
They melted their bones into the trophy of the aggro crag. That's why it glowed. It was just because it was radioactive with the souls of children who perished on their way up the aggro crag. Oh my goodness. Okay, the nostalgia. So. Back to buying video games and Super Nintendo games and N64 games. You said you facetiously that you get a flogging from your wife. But here's the truth. You have children, and you're going to share that experience with them. You're going to say,
they're going to play it for sure.
Yes, here's what Daddy grew up with. Let's see if it still is fun today.
Oh, it's still going to be fun, dude.
Yeah.
We grew up in a time, honestly, when we were growing up, in middle school and stuff and high school, we got extremely spoiled with how crazy fast everything advanced.
Yeah.
I mean, the year I was born was a year before the NES came out.
Yeah.
And between that time and when I was old enough to play video games, like 6 years, we were already doubling the graphic ability in SNES.
Yep.
And then we just kept doubling it, I mean, and
the bit wars.
It's just insane, like how far we've come. When the first, at home game console came out. And so we got it spoiled for sure.
It was magic
with how quick. Yeah. It was just, we couldn't wait for the next iteration, because every time we knew, like, okay, the Super Nintendo came out, we didn't even have to look for articles or try to find leaked information to know. We just already knew, like, oh, the next console is going to be 32-bit because this one's 16, That's the epitome of being spoiled.
Yeah.
They're going to make they're going to leap double than what we have now next time. Oh, I'm just waiting for it to be delivered. So I mean, that was, and I can't say that like today's video game consoles and video games are making those types of leaps and bounds. I mean,
No.
we're jumping into VR, we're jumping into, multiplayer was kind of big after
Online multiplayer. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, graphically, and as far as what we're used to seeing with our eyeballs, I don't think we're making the type of leaps that we were making for 15 years when we were coming up. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting point. Like back to what you're saying about being spoiled with growing up in a time where just there were afterburners on the graphical advancements, so that, and I've talked about this a few times before on the show, where going from 8-bit to 16-bit actually, also because we didn't have the internet like we had today. Yes, we had dial-up prodigy internet, but we didn't have what we had today. There's no way to know what anything looked like. Even you could see screenshots of it, like in Nintendo Power, which is literally a camera taking a picture of a CRT monitor. There was no way to know. So when you got it in real life, or one of your friends in the neighborhood, somebody got it in real life, it was magical. And I think technically, yes, we make these graphical advancements in modern time. Ray tracing is the last big thing to happen, and AI and all that stuff. So yes, things look so photorealistic now. I remember back when the PlayStation 2 came out, playing the NHL 2001 or whatever, and you could see the hockey players' faces and thinking, there's no way anything could get more lifelike than this. This looks like real people skating around on the ice. And it did. Technically it did. Like I said, we're up to RTX right now. It's so photorealistic that it's becoming a problem to where it's going to be hard to decipher, deepfake. It's going to be hard to decipher what is CGI and what is real. But there's, to me, and this is only my opinion, and it probably what I would imagine you might share the sentiment, there's no more magic. And I don't think it's because we're adults. I think it's because we're just so used to things looking so real now that graphics doesn't give me that same feeling of wonder and excitement that I felt when I was 12 years old, seeing Donkey Kong Country for the first time, or even seeing Mario 64 for the first time. It blew our minds, and it filled our hearts and minds with magic. I think that's how we got spoiled. Is we got spoiled on the magic of it all. I feel bad, kind of, sort of, for kids today who, I don't think, when they put down their iPads and they're just seeing the entire world presented to them instantly, they've seen everything. They're like a frog boiling in the water of all this great technology and VR and everything we have now. Can you say with your kids that you sense that they feel like the magic that we felt when a new game comes out? They can be excited for the new game, yes, but are they mesmerized with the graphics? Oh, this looks so much better, or how did they do this, or even wonder how the game's made, or do you sense that they feel any sort of that magic? I keep saying the word magic. Do you see that in your kids?
No, not really.
The way we did.
I don't think so, but that's because in today's video games and the advancements that they make, the devil is in the details now. Mm-hmm. Whereas when we were coming up, it was not so, hard to spot.
Right.
It was obvious. Like, I went from a 2D side-scrolling video game to a, holy crap, I can look all the way around my character in this 3D universe.
Right.
Which has never been
we
done
literally
before.
We literally changed dimensions.
Yeah. And so, those types of changes and leaps and bounds are not being seen, in today's video games because it's commonplace.
Right.
So I think the devil is in the details,
Mm-hmm.
It's smaller things like you brought up Turing. and the new architecture with video games and stuff like that, shadows and lighting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And people that really pay attention to that stuff, they'll see it for what it is and appreciate the leaps and bounds that we've come in producing high quality images and gaming.
Yeah.
But in our children, as children are, they don't pay attention to details.
Right.
They're not going to see that difference,
Right.
But for us, it was a lot easier to see because it was, wow, we're going from 8-bit to 16 or 16 to 32. From 2D to completely 3D video games, a complete 3D world
Right.
that I can run around and look in.
Right.
And they are not getting that type of difference because we've just come so far, so fast in the developments of games and how they're represented on the screen for us all to enjoy.
Right.
And that brings me back to the VR thing. That is, I think, the biggest wow factor for me, because like I tried VR and it was amazing, and it was a completely different feel and experience from anything that I've seen before. So I think that for our children, our kids growing up today, that is the thing that's going to give them the same impact that we had as kids when we saw the first 3D, Super Mario 64 for the first time, and we were like, wow, this is crazy.
And I would I would agree with that. I think that you're exactly right, that the jump from seeing, fully 3D rendered worlds on their gaming PC with an RTX 2080 or whatever and 16 cores of just the state of the art, graphics that can be displayed on a flat panel, that for the modern generation, that leap from seeing that on a screen to putting a visor on and being in the world of the game that's the biggest leap. And I think honestly that's one reason why I got VR a couple of years ago, is because it really was that the first thing in maybe 20 or 25 years that gave me that same kind of rush of, oh wow, this is something new. This is a new frontier of entertainment. This is a new frontier of technology, a new frontier of video games, the same way that I felt the first time you slid the power button on the N64 and you saw Mario's face. Blink, it's me, Mario. And you could adjust his face around and swirl around in the camera in Mario 64 that can go 360 degrees around him and explore the world. I hadn't felt the rush that I felt with VR since Mario 64. And it's very cool. VR comes with its own caveats. It's not complete. It's not there yet. I can't conceive of VR getting there within the next 10 years to be something that people use every single day. I've talked about this on the show before, that as it's right now, you have to put a visor on your head. You're aware of the weight of it. You're aware that you're holding controllers. You're aware that you're tethered by a cord to the PC. So it is very cool to step in to occasionally, but it takes planning. You have to map out your space and push your furniture around so that it's ready to play VR. So there's ways for it to go. VR has been out since the 80s, maybe a little bit before that, technically, in the military using VR. It was very primitive and wireframe and nothing like we have today. But yeah, I think VR is the most recent leap, that most recent reinvigoration of the imagination that you and I felt going from Super Mario Brothers 3 to Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo, and then going from Super Mario World to Mario 64, 64-bit. And then I think, and I can only speak for myself, maybe you can chime in here, is that after Nintendo 64, the magic kind of went away, because at that point, things looked better and the resolutions increased and you got better, graphics processing and everything, but it was still all 3D now. And it was cool, but the last time I felt magic was going from the Super Nintendo to the Nintendo 64, and some would argue going from the Super Nintendo to the PlayStation. But you see what I'm saying? Just that leap from 2D to 3D. After we got to 3D on the Nintendo 64 and PlayStation, I didn't feel the same rush until we got to VR 20 years later, 25 years later.
Video games have advanced on their shapes. Like if you watch a Nintendo 64 game, everything's very sharp when it comes to
polygonal
angles and everything, polygons and stuff,
vertexes,
and they got better at that. They smoothed it out. They made it more realistic. And for me, PlayStation 2 was where we kind of took the next jump. You got bigger worlds, you got better shapes, you got more in-depth, immersive environments and stuff like that. But it was still the same base that Nintendo 64 brought the first time, which was just ridiculous, It was the first time any of us had ever played a game where like you were side-scrolling and playing from left to right, doing something, and then all of a sudden, boom! It was no more left and right. It was I could go up and down. I could go anywhere I wanted, and it was just mind-blowing. And I believe PlayStation 2 kind of extended on that and just kind of kept growing on that whole thing. And that's part of the reason why PlayStation 2 was at the front of the video game console war for 7 years, 8 years, 10 years. I mean,
they only recently stopped making PS2 games. I mean, relatively speaking,
where they totally discontinued making anything.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was insane, with Grand Theft Auto San Andreas when that came out. It was just ridiculous at how massive of a game that was.
What's the most recent console you own? The most, like a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox?
I have a PlayStation 4 Pro.
Okay.
And I only got that last Christmas, Christmas before last. I thought my kids would play it. They really haven't played it much. And actually, I was just talking to my wife about it. I played it some, some of the PlayStation exclusive titles like Red Dead Redemption, Last of Us. I played those and stuff just because those are the only ways I could play them.
Right.
And I enjoyed them, and they were really good.
Yeah.
But I mean, like that's the first console that I've purchased since Xbox 360. I mean, I had that for years, before I bought another one, and before that, it was PlayStation 2. Yep.
Do you have because you and I are PC Master Race, and we do most of our gaming on PC, and I would imagine, if I was to guess, I would say your children are split between PC and the Switch.
Yeah, I mean, they play PlayStation, or they play on the PC mostly, but on the Nintendo Switch, they play some games that are obviously exclusive to Nintendo. Mario Kart, Mario Odyssey, and stuff like that. Those games I don't know what it is about those games. They're great. They're fantastic.
Right.
So
that's what Nintendo does best. And that's what Nintendo is best at. I see you've muted your microphone, so I can't ask you a question.
Well, you can ask me anything you want. I'm just
you're just farting.
Muting momentarily here.
Yeah, you were just farting. So, what was I gonna? What do you think? Do you already have an N64? Or do you say you were shopping for one?
No, so I purchased a Super Nintendo, and that should be here Friday.
Right.
And I purchased an undisclosed number of Super Nintendo games.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for that to show up so I can put that in my living room there, and I've got me a retro beanbag that I'm going to be purchasing to put down on the floor in front of the TV. Mm-hmm. And I hope my wife doesn't get mad that I'm cutting into her Grey's Anatomy, viewing.
You know what I miss about modern TVs and big screens? And I'm sure some of them have this feature, but I wish there was still a picture-in-picture mode on most TVs so that you could put your Nintendo in the smaller picture. We have all these inputs on TVs. I can only speak for my...
on the big picture.
What?
TV show would be on the small picture.
Right. Okay. I'm just saying, however you would have it. I don't. The TV I'm looking at right now, which is which I use for my computer monitor, doesn't have any sort of picture-in-picture mode or split screen mode. It has all these inputs, HDMI 1 through 4, and component inputs and composite and everything. Why wouldn't every TV that comes out now have a picture-in-picture or a split screen mode? I would imagine it's because the processing in the TV might not be that beefy, or I don't know what the freaking case is. It seems like a feature that's missed, and maybe there's some people listening right now that are just like, yes, thank you. I didn't realize that I missed picture-in-picture. It'd be so great to have net. I mean, you can do it on a PC all you want, have just the screen split up, but in the living room, Grey's Anatomy in a little sliver of the screen, top left corner or whatever, and then you have the Super Nintendo filling up the rest of the screen. So earlier, it was yesterday, but we started the conversation a couple days ago. We're getting into some gray area here, but
okay.
There's a guy named Krix in the Ukraine that makes their cartridges for various video game systems. I have one for my Game Boy that takes an SD card or a micro SD card. And basically, you can put stuff, I'll just say, on that micro SD card or full-size SD card, put it into the slot of the Super Nintendo cartridge, the special cartridge, and then put it into your system, and then you can have, I'll just put it like this, your full collection of legally purchased games on one cartridge. And I will not tell you how to do anything more with it, but I'm tapping my nose. People know, they know what I'm getting at. So the question is, and I try to make you think about this a little bit before you just click buy it now on everything, I was like, my mentality was, you're going to spend $70 or $80 on cartridges quickly anyways. You might as well get that first $70 or $80 out of the way with that modified cartridge first, before you get a few $100s into collecting the actual cartridges and then be like, I really can't justify spending between $70 and $100 on a modified micro SD cartridge. I told you the other day that I was completely worth it, because those cartridges are more expensive. There's value in, let's say you buy Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, you buy Super Mario World, you buy Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, you bought all those off of eBay. Nintendo's still not getting a dime off those eBay sales anyways, but I'm not going to argue the gray area. But let's say you buy 4 cartridges. Now you can just put those cartridges on a shelf and protect it in a dust-free area, but you can take those, I'll call them TOMs, and put them on the SD card of games you've legally purchased, and now you don't have to, insert the cartridges to play the game. You can kind of preserve the cartridges a little more. I just kind of want to get your thoughts on that.
I mean, it's a smart idea, because then you have the ability to play all the games that you want to play without having to go out and spend, $20, $15 a piece right away.
We're getting dangerous now. I'm saying you have bought the games. You're you got the TOMs for them, and you're
okay.
So you bought them legally.
If I buy a set of TOMs, I've been told that an underprivileged child gets a set of TOMs when I buy a pair of TOMs.
Oh yeah, the shoes. That's right. My goodness, we're murking the waters now.
But in reality, you're not having to put that thing in the cartridge, in the console over and over again, wearing down the board that
contacts
the game that runs off of and whatnot. It makes things a lot easier. You're not You're not running an emulation. You're actually running the actual game.
Right, you're running the code on the actual hardware.
Yeah, exactly. So you're playing the real game, but it's just not coming from the cartridge that you may have purchased previously.
Right. So I'll say real quick for the purists, there are purists out there who completely scoff at the idea of having, they're called flash carts. Let's just call it what it is, a flash cart, basically. That nothing beats playing the real cartridge on the real hardware with the real controller. And I 100% agree with that, but I'm also in the camp of, why not both? There are times where, yes, I'm looking at my stack of NES games right here. I'm looking at, what am I looking at? Duck Hunt, Super Mario Brothers 3. What do I see that? Commando. Yeah, I would like to put those games sometime into my actual yellowed NES machine with my actual yellowed controllers and play the game just like I remember as a kid on my actual CRT, big giant heavy CRT TV behind me. But other times, you know what? I just want to scroll through the list. And yes, here's what I found. Here's one kind of, it's a, how do I explain it? It's a caveat, sort of. It's a hidden danger that you don't realize happens to you when you get a flash cart. Let's say you just buy the flash cart, and let's not beat around the bush. You download every TOM to it because it'll fit on a 2 gigabyte card or whatever. You just download everything, and now you have 700 Nintendo games or 700 Super Nintendo games all in one place, where you fire up your Super Nintendo and then you just have a list of 700 games. The problem becomes that at that point, I've heard, let's just say, my friend told me that you lose some of the magic of, there's a deliberateness. It's kind of like playing vinyl records. You're choosing a record on purpose to listen to all the way through. It's a deliberate action. I'm going to put on this Alter Bridge record, and I'm going to listen to and appreciate the entire album because I can only play one album at a time. Versus an MP3 player, I can listen to Alter Bridge. I don't like, 10 seconds into a track, I'd rather hear Britney Spears. Oh, I'd rather hear Taylor Swift. Oh, I'd rather go to Metallica now. Oh, I'll go to Rammstein or whatever. You can skip through things without ever appreciating the full song, let alone the full album. And the same type of thing happens when you have every single TOM on one card. You'll be playing Bomberman for 5 minutes and then say, I think I want to play Super Mario Brothers 3, and you click over and you wind up not appreciating it, and you wind up kind of getting tired of it and not coming back to it, versus, hey, I'm going to put in this Mario Brothers 3 cartridge and I'm going to get to friggin' like World 6 or whatever before I turn this off. Whereas otherwise I'd get to the second level and say, I'm bored, I want to play something else. There's like a boredom, and you don't appreciate it when you have 1,000 of something versus one of something that you cherish, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
It's like a Steam library. Yeah. We have 1,000 games in Steam.
I have 146 games in my Steam library, and I probably play like 5 of them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that, and that's part of the reason why I've kind of tried to stay away from the whole Tom's thing, is because I want the actual physical game. Mm-hmm. I want to put it in my console, and I want to play it and be able to save my progress on the game. Mm-hmm. Because it just makes it that much more real, right? And it brings that much more nostalgia.
Absolutely.
To playing the game, and that just heightens the enjoyment of, paying what you pay for a game, for an authentic SNES game, say from eBay or wherever, mm-hmm. and enjoying what that brings to the table for you.
Right. Emotionally, spiritually.
So yeah, I definitely can see that point. I'm in agreement with you. Yeah.
I came from a camp of why not both, but I find myself, man, I really just want to fire up the NES. I want to push the power button, that tactile feel of pushing the springy power button and having it click into place.
Pop the cartridge down into the thing.
Yep.
You gotta just barely slide it in where it catches on the edge, and then you just pop it in.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You can feel it. It's very... we didn't have fidget spinners as a kid because everything we used was a fidget thing. Everything was fidgety. The buttons on record players were fidgety. The knobs on stereos were fidgety. Everything's a touch screen now. You want to change the volume of something, you bring up the menu and touch it and bring the volume. Yes, a lot of things still have volume knob or volume buttons, but you get what I'm saying. A lot of old stuff, and
analog volume knobs.
Analog volume knob. A lot of car stereos now don't even have analog volume knobs, and it's the most frustrating thing. That's one reason I like collecting. A huge reason I like collecting vintage tech, whether it's music gear or vintage video game systems and old Commodore 64s. Is I like everything. It's a button, and you press it, and you click it on, and you just twist a knob. You manipulate things with your hands to do something on the screen. You're not just rubbing the screen the entire time. And I'm not hating on tablets. I have a tablet. I use an iPad every day. But that's why it makes me appreciate coming into the man cave, the recording studio, whatever, and pushing buttons and twisting knobs and pushing the power button on the NES.
Doing stuff.
Physical actions that equal opposite reaction of, hey, now the TV's on, and you hear the TV go boom and start humming, and it's a very visceral experience. Speaking of visceral experiences, and I think we'll start wrapping it up with this conversation, tell us a little bit about the microphone you just bought for your streaming or recording, whatever your computer microphone.
Just whatever, it's like anything with computers. If you're an enthusiast, you like to have something that's a cut above the norm. So I went and I researched a bunch of USB mics because I'm not going to get into the whole XLR, mixing thing because I'm not an audio engineer. But I wanted something that was as good as you could get.
Plug and play.
But still maintaining the plug and play ease. So I purchased the HyperX Quadcaster, which has 4 different audio modes. You have stereo, omnidirectional, cardioid, and
polar patterns. Yeah,
I forget what the other one is. But anyway,
omni. Hold on. Omni. So it's 360 degrees, bidirectional and/or figure 8, which is front and back.
Yeah.
Stereo, which is either. Does it tell you the degree of separation?
It probably does in the spec sheet. I don't know what it is.
It's usually it's usually like 120 degrees. It kind of looks like a caddy corner type thing. But the mode you use it mostly cardioid.
Yes.
So those are the 4 modes. Does it have a pad on it? Or like a roll off or anything? A pad would be like if you're recording something really, really, really loud and you reduce the volume on the mic permanently by 20 dB or 10 dB.
Yeah, it has a gain control on the bottom.
Okay.
That allows the user to adjust the gain. So if they want to lower it because it's sitting right in front of a 24-inch guitar amplifier or whatever,
right,
you can turn it down. Right.
If you know you're going to be whispering, you can turn it up.
Yeah.
That's cool. That has a gain control. That's good.
Yeah. So I mean, it looks really nice. It performs really nice. It's better than what I had previously.
Tell people what you had previously, because it wasn't bad.
No, I had a Blue Snowball.
Yeah, it's a good mic.
And I mean, I think it was a pretty good mic. I used it for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. I think this is a upgrade for sure from that. But by no means does it take away from what the Snowball was able to do.
Yeah, I'd have no problem if someone... I wouldn't recommend a Snowball out of the gate, I'll just say. But if someone said, I bought a Snowball, or I'm thinking of buying a Snowball, I'd say that's a great mic. I've had a few Snowballs. I still have a Snowball around here somewhere. It's a great USB microphone. The only reason that I wouldn't recommend it off the bat is if someone had that price range. What is a Snowball? $40 or $50? $60?
$50.
Yeah, it's great for $50. I can just think of at least one more microphone that I would recommend for the same price point that has more features. The one thing that I didn't like about the Snowball, unless they made different models, the Snowball didn't have a headphone amplifier, so you couldn't plug in your headphones to the same thing. It wasn't an all-in-one audio solution.
Right.
I really like all-in-one audio solutions, and I'm not sure that the Quadcaster has a headphone.
It does. It has a headphone jack here if I
Good.
wanted to plug it into it.
Awesome. It's not a necessity, but it makes life so much easier, and you can do so much more with the microphone when you can monitor what the microphone's doing. So that's literally, it's not even, in terms of the Snowball, it's not the sound quality, because the sound quality of the Snowball is really, really good, especially for the price. It's just that it doesn't have the headphone output. It's not an all-in-one audio solution, and I can think of, I'll just tell you the name. It's a Samson, Samson Go mic. The company Samson has been making microphones and audio gear forever. SAMSON. And then the model of mic is Go. Go mic, MIC. Samson Go mic. It's like $40 or $50. Very high. And I'm not being paid by Samson. I just have two of these things because they're so small. They travel. They clip onto your laptop screen. They have a heavy base that can go onto a desk. But it has everything built in, including a couple polar patterns. I believe it has a pad on it, and it has a headphone output. It's so small that it can even fit in your pocket, and it's not the greatest sounding microphone in the entire universe. It's not going to beat a $500 studio condenser microphone, but I have recorded several podcasts with it, and it sounds great. And if I didn't tell anybody that I was using it, no one would have known. You use crappy mics, and people can tell the audio's bad. But the Samson Go, it's a great microphone. So if someone only had $40, $50, that's where I would recommend. But if someone already bought the Snowball, or that's just what they want, yeah, can't go wrong with the Snowball either. It's a great mic. But once you up the game, HyperX, is that who makes the Quadcaster?
HyperX, yeah.
It sounds good.
They make a lot of headsets for gamers and stuff, and I believe this microphone is their first.
They make memory
at
and
getting into the microphone market.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it had great reviews. So I decided to try it. I've always been that kind of person that likes to try things that are new, that are kind of on the cusp of, hey, this is something that nobody else is offering.
Right. Type
of thing, like your Blue Yetis and your Blue Nano Yetis and everything else. Those have been around for several years, and everybody swears by them. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to try something that was a little bit different.
I like it.
Everybody else.
I really like that microphone. Skype obviously isn't the best way to tell, but you can tell there's still there's a body coming through. There's a body to the voice even coming through Skype. But the reason why I really like that microphone, not just because it has a lot of great features. And again, this is not an ad for HyperX. HyperX isn't giving me a freaking dime, and I would let my listeners know if they were. I'm just telling. The reason I like it, it's arbitrary. I like the color scheme. It's glowing red and black. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a nice aesthetics. It has a really nice aesthetics, and the package that they offer it in is really nice. It comes with a shock mount and a boom stemmed adapter.
And the pop filter.
It's pretty much ready to go out of the box. Has a built-in pop filter. It's a nice mic, and like you said, it's glowing red. Whenever I mute it, it turns off. So
right.
When your mic is live, and when something is, when you're saying something, it's going to be recorded.
Yeah.
So it's easy to kind of tell, like, oh no, I got a hot mic over here.
So
maybe you don't talk about my mother-in-law that way.
So the actual grill is what glows red. That's what's awesome.
Yeah. It's a pretty nice looking mic.
It's not just like a little like a red LED band around the top or anything. It's the whole grill glows like a light bulb.
Yeah, it's neat looking.
Can you adjust any of that?
I can't adjust the brightness of it or anything like that. It's just on or off.
Right.
And the way you turn it off is by muting it, which is by a touch sensor that's at the top of the mic. You just tap it, and it turns off.
Cool.
Which is nice. So it's really easy to use. It's easy to quickly mute yourself during live recordings or whatever. Mm-hmm. Or if you're playing games and you're about to, sneeze and blow a big snot rocket somewhere, you don't want someone to feel the wrath of your nose.
You don't want them to hear that you've got the Rona.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta hide the Rona.
You don't gotta scare anybody. All right. Well, I think that's all I got for tonight. Nathan, is there anything else you wanted to bring up or ask or
Yeah,
not that I know anything.
Make sure to have your cats or dogs spayed or neutered.
Okay. I don't want to self-incriminate myself. Allow myself to introduce myself. Sometimes I would like to do more than spay or neuter Jack. Let's just say he is not a good cat. Oh, he's a fat waste. Did I tell you about the time that I was recording a podcast? And he's dangerously close right now, but I was recording a podcast and he was chewing on the cables back there, and he pulled he turned off the surge protector. Like one of his fat rolls rolled onto the surge protector and just shut everything down.
Flip the switch. And I was, we're a little bit over an hour into this podcast here, but I was about the same point, maybe like an hour and a half into one of these recent ones. And the computer just shut off while I was recording, and my heart dropped right out of my butthole. I couldn't believe that. I was like, an hour and a half. Why? So I was able to go in and salvage it. Thank God. But yeah, he shut the computer off on me once, and he's not good. He's not a good cat. And the thing is, I can't offer him for adoption. I can't do it. Multiple reasons. He's too fat.
He's too fat. No one would take him. They don't want this liability. But then what he does for approximately 20 seconds a week is be very cute and cuddly. And you're just like, gosh. Every time you have your hand raised highest with the executioner axe, he looks up at you with these big eyes. Me. And you're just like, dang it, Jack. You make it so easy to kill you all week, and then you elicit sympathy. And then he starts the whole process over again. So, anyways, when does the first game due at your door?
I think Friday. The console, which comes with Super Mario World,
cool.
is due, and Super Street Fighter 2.
Awesome. Yes. New challengers.
That same day.
The new challengers.
Yep. That'll be good.
That's not even the last Street Fighter. Oh boy. The best, in one of the biggest games, not to get off too much on a tangent because we're wrapping it up here. The Street Fighter Alpha 2 came out for the Super Nintendo, and it was one of the biggest games. I mean, physical size of ROM on there. The chip was the biggest. What was it? How was it? More than 32 meg? I think it was like 48 meg or something like that. It was huge for the Super Nintendo. Bigger than Donkey Kong Country, I believe bigger than Yoshi's Island, bigger than Killer Instinct. It was a massive, massive game. It is the only game that I had in my collection that had loading times on a Super Nintendo, but it wouldn't say loading. It would say round 1, fight, and the game would pause for like 3 or 4 seconds.
Yeah,
and then it would start, and then it would be loading the next bit of code for that match into the RAM or whatever, I don't know how it all works. I'm not an expert on it, but it loaded the next bit of game as you went. And I always just thought the placement. And I'm sure a programmer could answer this for me, and maybe I'll ask them eventually, is I always thought that loading point was put at the worst possible location in the game. Like the loading, that little loading thing should have been between the matches, or at least between the rounds. So it should have been round 1, fight. You fight. The scores go, and the screen goes black between rounds. And the screen should have just been black for a couple of seconds while it loads the next thing, and then you go into the game uninterrupted again. The way they did it was round 1, fight, then nothing. You would wait there for 4 seconds, and then the characters would start moving. It was the worst possible location to load the next segment of game. But yes, so back to Super Street Fighter 2 New Challengers. You don't have the problem with that. That is, it's such a good game.
It's the one I played the most of growing up.
Yeah, and
That's why I bought it.
Probably at my house or probably wherever. I had all the Street Fighters. Of course.
Indubitably.
All right, Nate. I think that's it. Thanks for coming on Geek Therapy Radio.
No problem.